Hello, I'm at a really weird angle. Hello, and welcome to a Monday Night Raw LOP Radio review. That's not the word order I've ever done for this show, but suck it, it's happened now. Yes, Randy Orton RKO's Drew McIntyre to end the show, and we have our SummerSlam main event set. So hello and welcome to the LOP Radio Raw review. That's the words in the correct order. Just checking I've unmuted my mic. Yeah, I have. That's a great start. Anyway. Today is going to be talking about, through the show, the main topic of, I guess, what the main event and my feelings towards that. We're here live on YouTube and also in podcast form. All the links are in the description. Also, if you head over to wrestlingheadlines.net, there is a page, there's an article for it there with all the links and everything. Also, you can... what can you do? You can donate to $2 a pay radio on RedCircle. Also, YouTube have got a new thing set up, so I'm seeing numbers in weird places that there's normally blank nothings. So it's really strange. Actually, is it just because I've clicked on a different setting? Yes, it is. Expert live streaming. I clicked on a different button. I prefer... Actually, no, let's get the thing so I can actually see something different. Anyway, yes, this is the Raw review. I've messed myself up by clicking on a different option, so this is amazing content at the moment. Also, Monday Night Raw review, wearing the red stuff. I've even got red shorts on. That's not on purpose. Red hoodie as well, because it's Monday Night Raw. It's not the reason, it's mostly because these are the clothes I've picked up. So today, I'm Red Imp. But anyway, Drew McIntyre opened the show to talk about the main topic of this, which I spent ages photoshopping, so I couldn't bloody get Drew to get Randy Orton's legs to look normal. The Photoshop image is for this show. It's great. Just don't look at Randy's legs. just ignore that bit. Just don't look at that bit. I spent ages trying to get it right. Just don't full screen it. Just minimise the... Anyway, so Randy Orton opened the show, and he was rather career reflective, going over some of the big factions he's been involved with. Says he's missing something nowadays, and now he thinks he knows exactly what that is. He wants back the WWE Championship, and he outright challenges Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam. What are my thoughts on this? Quickly, before we go into... I'll jump to the main event because it relates to this, and then I'll go through the show in order. But last week, I said I wouldn't do that match at this point. Like, hold it off for a tad. They're building really nicely, as they are, as the biggest face, the biggest heel. You can have their moments, like the biggest moments in the build of it, happen at SummerSlam. Then he can launch off of that where they have their biggest heel moment cemented, and Drew McIntyre as the biggest babyface gets cemented. I guess them wrestling each other does that as well. But for me, it's really because neither man should really be losing right now. Like, yeah, it's a big match between the biggest face and heel respectively. Something that's easy to get hyped about, but both are characters in the middle of building really damn nicely. Like, there's a fear they're writing themselves into a corner by booking this match right now. I'd just personally hold it off. Go with your normal... Go with the kind of status quo. I understand, though, that things might have changed with Edge injured. Because for all we know, you do Randy Orton Edge one last time at SummerSlam, really cement Randy Orton as that huge heel, even though the WWE pattern tells you third match is where the babyface wins. But for me, I would like to cement Randy Orton as that top heel. Go with that. Then you can go with him to Drew McIntyre after Drew McIntyre's had his biggest moment as well, and he can reach a point of either man really could win. Whilst here, the only reason that's the case is because neither man should lose. And whenever WWE write themselves into a corner, quite often you get a screwy finish. And I'm getting enough of them with Asuka versus Sasha Banks. A dream feud. Amazing wrestling. Just with awful WWE endings. It's just like, oh, you're giving me like 15 minutes of awesome and then the ending is just crap. Oh, that it gets me. It gets me that. But anyway, talking about Orton versus McIntyre, that's my only fear. Yes, if it's a main event of SummerSlam, that maybe diminishes that a tad. But for me, the way that both guys are building up momentum, I really wouldn't want either man to lose at this point. Because they're building so nicely, you can really cement them as the biggest in WWE in their respective positions, or at least Monday Night Raw. But to have this match, suddenly somebody's got to lose. And I think that's my biggest worry with this. Somebody does have to lose this match. Or you do a screwy finish. But I live in the world where I really just prefer just to put people over. It's just surprisingly enough that works really well. Just have somebody win. It does wonders for them. Yeah, if they're going to do this match, if they have to do it at this point, I would go with Drew McIntyre winning, continuing his reign, and then Randy Orton kind of just fades away. Not fades away, that's completely wrong. It's got Matt Hardy saying in my head, I'm trying to shut it down because I don't want to say that. But yeah, with Randy Orton, maybe he's at that point in his career where a loss may not hurt him that much compared to Drew McIntyre, is getting built, and he, as the top babyface, he needs more time to get established. His reign ending here, I wouldn't really do it. I saw some people with the idea of, well, what if Randy Orton wins here, and then Drew McIntyre can get his win in front of a live crowd with a big pop, and you have Randy Orton hold the title until that can happen. Maybe, but really, I think it's going perfectly fine as it is. Like, the feedback WWE will be getting is that Drew McIntyre, as the babyface champion right now, is a really good thing, and they're on a roll with it, so why cut that? Whilst Randy Orton, yes, he's the top heel, but he's also such a veteran at this point that maybe him losing wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But something tells me to keep him strong, there'll be a screwy finish. Even if they pick a winner, it won't be clean. Something will happen. And Randy Orton gets his next feud set up in that way, whatever it is. But still, I've got the fear that this is leading to a screwy finish because they wouldn't want either man to lose, so they don't. It's like, be it a screwy finish, be it Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre not having a winner, which is the worst case scenario in a way. Yeah, it's. I don't really know which way they'll. I say I don't really know which way they go. I suspect which way they'll go. Hopefully, that's not what happens. We get a little bit of a. Like somebody actually gets put over because they've done such a good job with McIntyre so far. Even if the opponents haven't been all top tier, and some have been ones he'll definitely beat. Like, he's always beating Bobby Lashley, he's always beating Dolph Ziggler, but the character himself has really grown with those feuds. He's really felt the champion coming out of them. So they've done their job. Even if you never believed he'd lose the title, they did their job in making him feel like a champion, which is my one thing I was quite sad with Kofi Kingston is the feuds they gave him never did that. And he always kind of just felt like an upper mid-card kind of champion, and he was always placed in those positions on the cards. He was never main eventing things. Whilst Drew McIntyre, he properly does feel like a champion, and does such a good job of establishing that. It'd be a shame for him to lose. And also with the thought of, well, when then crowds can come back and you get that big pop. Who knows when that will be? Especially, not to go into like stuff outside of what's being on the screen a bit too much, but especially in not just America, but in Florida as well. Who knows when that is going to be? Because it is not going down. Numbers aren't going down in America. Just the sad truth. It's not going down. It's not being handled well. It's getting worse. And it's not going to get better anytime soon. So who knows when that will be? Obviously, I'm talking within like the next couple, if not few months. I'm not a scientist, really, so I can't really go into like much further past that other than speculation and things I've heard. But things aren't looking that grand. So if that is your plan to have Drew win it back in front of a live crowd, you cannot predict when that will be. And for all we know, that'll be miles down the road. As in, for all we know, that could be 2021 until you can even have a sparse crowd. Like over here in the UK, where our numbers have continued to be down, I'll wait until like a couple weeks time, because we've had our like other places open where people might have congregated, and we'll wait to see what the numbers are there. But at the moment, they've continued to go down, and even with that, same in Japan as well. Even with the numbers continuing to go down, and they've not really spiked, even though there's been that small reopening. Like even in that case, the plans for the sports the next season is to have like a sparse crowd that might make noise, and they want to limit chanting. So if you've watched any New Japan Pro Wrestling this past week, that is kind of the idea for not just wrestling, but for all sports. Football will be very similar, where the crowd is there, but they're encouraged not to chant, or just to kind of limit the spread of the disease. However, say football's doing that over here in the UK as well. So other countries are implementing these things to try and stop the disease. You would hope, were that to happen in America. So we're talking about the situation where they do open up, and the idea is for Drew McIntyre to get that pop. The point I'm making is, do not bet on that scenario being able to happen, even if America reaches a point where it is fine for people to go to the live show. It really should be a sparse crowd, and just like we're seeing in the other countries, because there is a measure to kind of stop it from spreading as much, limit the chanting as well, so you're not going to get that mega pop. Like, if you've watched New Japan Pro Wrestling again, I'm sorry to keep going on about different company, but they're the only one I can really compare to right now, because they're the only one running with any form of crowd. It's just clapping, and it's not the same. It's like, yes, it's better than the faux crowd. Yes, it's better than like no crowd at all. But they clap. That's all they kind of do, and they don't really cheer. You'll get the odd noise out of them. Hiromu Takahashi brought it out of them in the main event over the weekend. Like, you got a feeling, but you don't get the big pop. It's just not going to happen. So is it worth holding for that level? Personally, no. And personally, it's a massive gamble to even assume you'll be able to do that anyway. Because, again, who knows? Like, even with the countries I'm talking about that are doing these measures like Japan, who knows if something's going to happen where they'll have to shut down again? So to have a massive bet on something maybe quite a bit down the line, something like that, like WWE's method of booking might actually save them here. Where, like, I've criticised it before, where it's like month-to-month writing, and then you've got your long-term stories either not really happening or being interjected now and then. Compared to other companies that try and do their long-form storytelling, the way Japan does it helps. Like, if you were to do WWE's way of storytelling but try and do it long-term, you might hit a massive wall at the moment, just because you can't really predict that far into the future. And you don't know which stars are suddenly not going to become available. Like with Apollo Crews, where they firmly implemented him into their plans, and now he's United States champion and unavailable. It's just like kind of case in point that you do not know who in your roster you are suddenly going to be completely unable to use. It's quite a sucky situation. But personally, I'd keep Drew McIntyre champion. You have Randy Orton put him over. But whatever they say, or you have discrete finishers, or you have interference, or whatever. But whatever you do, don't go with the idea. For me, it's just the idea I saw proposed over the internet by quite a few people, and others jumping in and going, "Yeah, it's a great idea." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is a great idea." Not during a pandemic that isn't being handled well. Like, that is especially in Florida, where it is spreading pretty badly. Like, to have in a normal world, it's a great booking idea because you can build to it over time. But if your point is to get the pop, don't bank on that being an opportunity that will be there, because it's not looking grand. You can have hope. You continue to book with hope, but it's just kind of like, personally, I'd go with the idea of write a good story, go with that, and like, if your great story is to have McIntyre retain, don't have your idea be because there'll be a lifeguard for a pop. Don't expect that. But anyway, let's jump to the main event. Keep it on Drew McIntyre. We had Drew McIntyre's mystery stipulation for the night as he took on Dolph Ziggler. The champion picked Extreme Rules, which was playing off their match from the pay-per-view, so Dolph can use all the weapons he wants once again. But this time, so can Drew. A brawl of a start to it, Dolph coming off slightly worse after he darted into the plexiglass by Drew and just beaten down with a kendo stick. You might call this one Drew's revenge. Like, no remorse in his violence as he destroyed Dolph Ziggler. Like a steel chair party, an expertly set up table. Things were not looking grand for the challenger. He was able to get back into it with a last resort low blow. Ziggles attempted his own ringside kendo stick beat down afterwards, but as we went to break, the lad was back down after McIntyre speared the man through the timekeeper's barricade. Like, in the final minutes, Ziggler managed to get in a couple of counters, but it never ended well for him. The champion cutting him off before any follow-up came to fruition. The biggest being after a superplex, McIntyre calling for the Claymore. Instead, he got spun inside out by a zigzag that looked cool as hell, but the champion survived. So kudos to Ziggler there. Ziggler attempted to follow up with a steel chair, but as I said earlier, no follow-ups. Drew flies at him with the Claymore, and Dolph goes flying into the corner prop table. 1, 2, 3. McIntyre reigns strong. Question was this for the title? Because last week it was advertised as for the championship. This week, not for the championship. Okay, what happened? So, there's been multiple reports, but one, I think it was coming from Dave Meltzer of Observer Radio, was saying that it was originally going to be for the title, but then they didn't want to confuse the kind of the message and the feeling from Randy Orton's challenge. So when Randy Orton cut his promo, he gave there was no line or indication about Dolph Ziggler challenging for the title. It was just a match. And so the only challenge from tonight's show was Randy Orton to McIntyre. It was just dropped that this was for the championship. So yes, confusion. Yes, it wasn't just at all registered after last week. It was, this is for the title this week. Just no mention of it being for the title. Like, wait, was this for the title? I mean, Drew McIntyre won, so it didn't really matter anyway. But still, yeah. Anyway, he lifts the WWE Championship up high, but before the show can go off air, Randy Orton slides in with an RKO. He told him he wouldn't see it coming at the start of the show. We instead go to black with Randy Orton holding the title up, Raw kicking right into gear for SummerSlam. So that's kind of my take on it. The main event was like a fun, chaotic thing. There's another one where you're just waiting for Drew to beat him up. My fear was they'd build to Drew beating him up and Dolph Ziggler would get a long spell of offense, but really it was, no. Like, Drew McIntyre, champion, is dominant, which as a babyface is fantastic to see for the first time in what feels like ages. Like, a powerful babyface on top who is controlling his matches. Like, Baron Corbin, Roman Reigns, take notes of what I'm enjoying here. The babyface was on top for a lot of this, just destroying Ziggler, who then fought back into it with devious means, ended up getting clobbered anyway. Whenever he fought back in, even with just full-on great wrestling skills, no follow-up, wasn't able to pull off anything. A dominant show from the champion. Just really enjoyable match. Really enjoyable stuff. But I've already said my take, really, on Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. It's one of the things where it's the top face versus the top heel, and they're both fantastic at the moment. It's going to be great. I'm going to enjoy the build, in all likelihood. I'm going to enjoy the match in all likelihood. It's just one of those things where, personally, I wouldn't have done it yet. I would have held off. But I also understand in the COVID world, with what I was just saying, where you can't bank on who you're going to have, maybe holding it off and assuming you could do it later is just as bad as I was saying, where just assuming you'd be able to have the payoff later. And you don't really have that deeper roster of who does Drew McIntyre challenge that feels like a SummerSlam main event if it's not Randy Orton. Because again, bare roster, plus the issue, plus them having that problem of that long-term issue of them not really building any new stars. Now they can't use those older stars, and they're kind of running the well of, well, if it's not Randy Orton, who is it? Who else is that big star? It's not the greatest situation to be in. I understand it, even if I personally wouldn't have gone for it. But I thought I'd at least note the accidental hypocrisy, just in case I was hitting on that. It's like, yeah, I'm aware that me saying, oh, you shouldn't hold this story off, and then say, no, you should hold the match off. Like, yeah, I understand. I understand the situation. Let's just move on to the running through the card for the show. Actually, I need to take a drink. It's July, but as you can see, I'm wearing a jumper. Temperature's really dropped. And whenever you show any symptom of any illness, it's in your head. It's like, oh, I'm starting to get a dry throat. Oh, is it? Like, no, I've just had a bit of a dry throat. The temperature's changing from hot to cold. Sometimes I get symptoms when that happens. Anyway, time to get through the card in order. Starting off with, at the start of the show, after Randy Orton gave his promo, challenging Drew McIntyre, as he walked up the ramp, we went straight into Nia Jax wanting to do the same thing. With the Raw Women's Championship, she walked out, she gave her declaration of challenge, gloating about taking out Charlotte Flair, when Shayna Baszler's interrupted. She just flat out tells her no one gives a damn what you want. Jax does not take that well, and the two brawl to the ad break. decent start, decent opener. It was a weird one where characters voiced their intentions. Then there was a brawl and went to an ad break. It built weirdly. I think what I'm trying to say. Even though it did what it needed to and then cut off like a character in a David Lynch show. But not like that at all. So your purpose is done here. Let's have you mysteriously disappear. You've done all you need to for the plot. The first match of the night, segment number 2, was the Viking Raiders versus Ricochet versus Ricochet and Cedric Alexander versus Andrade and Angel Garza. I feel like I want to give Ricochet and Alexander a shorter name, and I swear I know there was a longer name where the Street Profits called Cedric the Entertainer Alexander. No, Cedric the Sports Entertainer. How was it? Anyway, I promised myself I wouldn't giggle when I said that one. It's so stupid. Anyway, I want to say first off, before we get to the match, as I was just saying, the Street Profits were in the ring and they played hype men for the two babyface teams because we're getting pace and energy in every department in this first match of the night. So high tempo introductions, really making them feel like, oh, these guys are amazing. And then Street Profits went to commentary for the rest of the match, which is like energy everywhere. Like WWE's triple threat tag matches are always chaotic as hell. Then you add Dawkins and Ford to the commentary for it. Like the pace of what we were seeing on screen matches what we're hearing in our ears. And that's kind of where WWE's quick cutting kind of works when the action in the ring matches it, and then when what we're hearing by the commentary team is equally as bouncing about with equal amount of energy. So that's what I said last week in my little nerdy rant, just stating that for me, a lot of the time when the quick cuts are happening, the reason it's jarring is because the action that they're cutting between isn't going at a quick pace. So you're essentially telling a story that's not happening, or trying to give a feeling that is not represented by the action. It's just your quick cuts trying to do it. But in this case, no, the action matched the quick cuts. So I'm fine with it. Quick cutting isn't always bad when you use it correctly for the right point. Like, case in point, this match, I was perfectly fine with it. Later on, when it was kind of happening, I think, like Nia Jax, Shayna, Bazer, where they try and do the quick cuts to use the cutting to add the kind of craziness to brawls. For brawls are where it doesn't really work for me, because it's like a Transformers film where you can't really tell what's going on. It's like, I don't really need that. But in a match like this, where it is like random thing, yeah, totally for it. And it all gels, like working really well for a great 10 to 15. That's the perfect kind of enjoyable. Fun and forgettable. Like a Transformers movie. Digest that frantic action, brace the camera cuts, and somehow remember none of it by the next day. Fun and forgettable. Angel Garza and Andrade capitalised on all the chaos. The opportunistic heels rolled Alexander back in after the whole gang hit a series of dives to the outside, down onto the ever-increasing pile of people. Garza, in the end, winning with the wing... Is it the wing clipper? Yeah, winning with the wing clipper on Cedric Alexander. And Garza and Andrade get the win, and they are number 1 contenders for the Raw Tag Team Championships and will face Street Profits at SummerSlam. So now we get quite a few weeks of build towards that, which will, again, that just screams fun tag team match, which quite often WWE pay-per-views are in need of. Assuming it's placed rightly on the card, sometimes the Raw Tag Team matches come a bit later, and I'm just sitting there just thinking, I'm ready to move on to the bigger matches now, please. I'm not a fan of the... like WWE, it's only sometimes, but they'll do the up and down kind of roller coaster momentum where you have big match, lower card match, big match, lower card match, big match, lower card match. And I don't particularly like that because that means I'm having big investment, no investment. Even if it's like lower investment, it feels like no investment compared to the huge amount I just had in the last thing. I personally like one that builds, like a card that builds to the end. You can start off hot and then kind of like then slow down a little bit and then build, but I'm not a fan of the up and down momentum. I zone out in between the big matches, and surely that's not what you want. Surely you don't want me not paying attention. Anyway, Nia Jax versus Shayna Bazer came after this, quickly just keeping all of their attention in within the first hour. A unique kind of match for WWE. 2 heels going right at each other from the bell. No, you very rarely get heel versus heel in WWE. And then we immediately find out how we're getting such a match with the two brawling to the outside and straight away just getting counted out. Like, yeah, as I just said, you don't really get heel versus heel in WWE. Yes. Well, when we do, we don't really. They continue to brawl, fighting off officials, beating up a poor ginger lad who couldn't get his shirt off over his head, eventually being held off by the gaggle of referees, and they kind of brawl away. Both of them fighting over the fact they want to be number one contender for the Raw Women's Championship. And this is the first week of that. So yes, I put in my gag about we don't get heel versus heel, and then, oh yes, we still don't get it. But it's building to something, and they've got weeks to do it. So this is week one. Like, don't criticise or analyse it as the whole story when you've had one beat, or two beats tonight. When you've had just like the first couple of beats. Like, who knows where it's going to go afterwards? All I can say is the setup made me interested. Oh, heel versus heel. And then, heel versus heel. And they're going to build from there. It can get super interesting. Like, will they add a character to the dynamic? Or are these two going to build and one of them kind of automatically become the face? Or not? Like, especially with the story they've got going on with the Raw Women's Championship, I'm assuming neither Nia Jax nor Shayna Baszler will be in the match at SummerSlam. That is going to be something else. Maybe these two have a match at SummerSlam, and this is their way of holding it off. Multiple ways can go with it. Not a bad start. We'll see what happens afterwards. After that, we got VTR Play recap of Eye for an Eye. They're still fully serious about this completely silly, ridiculous eye arc. It's, again, after the match, after the plastic eye type of thing, that just made me laugh. I can't take this seriously. And they're playing it off as a serious thing that he has done a really dark, evil thing to Seth Rollins, and he meant to see him as his character who's done this horrific thing, and the people around him are like even Murphy's losing a bit of faith because is he even willing to go that far? But I'm just like, it was really crappy plastic eye that he just held onto. It looked really bad. And WWE on Twitter are still putting out reports, like recovery reports of Rey Mysterio, and like in the replies you get a mixture of some people buy it. I saw a few people buying it this way. I was just like, what are you people? Like, you're on Twitter, so I'm assuming you're not young. So that's why I'm suddenly critiquing. I mean, if you're enjoying it, good for you. I guess good for you. Enjoy what you like. But yeah, I can't not find it silly. So that's what that is. When they take it seriously, I was like, but why? It was so blatantly silly, and all the coverage for it was taking the piss out of it. And you see so many wrestlers who don't work for WWE saying, this is why I don't work for them. Like, it wasn't in the press as isn't this arc interesting? But no such thing as bad press, except for no such thing as bad publicity. That was it, because it is bad press. Anyway, I'll move on. Backstage, Rollins is checking in with Murphy, making sure the Aussie is still with him, and because that will build out throughout the show. After the break, Mark Henry's backstage, hitting on Ruby Riott and Bianca Belair. They're taken, Mark. Wait, Mark, you're taken. Think of your wife, Mark. Think of the kids. It was also later. Oh, who was he talking to later? I was going to put it in my notes. Mark Henry's. Who's he hitting on now? Tune in next week to see who Mark Henry's hitting on backstage. It's seemingly everybody. I can't remember who it was. Was it Drew McIntyre? Whoever it was, it made me laugh when I was like, I can continue this joke, but I didn't actually write it down. No, I can't remember who it was. Anyway, after this, we've got Seth Rollins with his segment. Rollins is in the ring with Buddy Murphy, and he makes sure we're up to date on the exposition before explaining why he's not happy. Says that he should be happy, but word is Dominic Mysterio is in the building. Seth doesn't want there to be more violence for another person to get injured after a confrontation. Can't say that word. After a confrontation turns violent. So he straight up calls out Dominic, and out he walks. No music, pomp or circumstance. Rollins plays the good guy, being totally calm and friendly, showing no animosity. Dominic is rightly cautious, not buying a cent of the act. Always be wary of the man who calls himself benevolent. When the Messiah is done talking, Dominic just takes Rollins down. But Murphy's right there, and the two beat the lad down at ringside, throwing him into barricades and the commentary desk before turning to the steel steps. Seth says this isn't his fault. He didn't want this to come to violence. But before he can do anything, Aleister Black launches off the steps. Rollins goes straight for the arm, though, that he attacked last week. Huzzah for continuity. Now Black's the one getting launched into the barricade, and a stomp from Rollins, who eyes up the steps, but tells Murphy, you know what you have to do. And Buddy Murphy's like, wait, what? And I was like, you know what you have to do? Like, for me, great character moment, as Rollins is voicing this as the right thing to do, when in reality, he doesn't have the guts to do it himself. Like, a great heel character moment. It's the type of, I call it character subtlety, but it's a type of character subtlety that WWE don't often do. As in, the character trait that, or kind of the arc Seth Rollins' character is taking, and Buddy Murphy's arc that he's taking, that they are taking, it's not blatantly being shouted at you, which is not normally WWE method. Like, they might do it in later weeks, but for now, I was like, no, this was an awesome character moment, because you saw in Buddy Murphy's face, like, wait, what? And Seth Rollins is eagerly like, no, you know what you have to do. When, if you just look into why Seth Rollins is saying that, like, after what he did earlier, he does not have the guts to do it. And he's getting Buddy Murphy, the man, to do the horrible stuff instead. Loved it. After a ton of convincing, Buddy Murphy does exactly that. He pushes Black's head right into the steps. No CGI, no plastic eye. They just do it, and he holds his eye going, ah, which personally, a million times better. Like the one where it's the week when they did the first injury to Rey Mysterio and just had like a bit of blood pack or just a bit of blood painted onto his face or dabbed on. That was a million times better than what happened at Extreme Rules. Rollins orders the Aussie to then get Dominic, but the man's clearly not clear of conscience, taking a little bit too long to get to Dominic, who then strikes with the kendo stick and goes on a rampage, swinging wildly as Rollins and Murphy escape up the ramp. Love this segment. Aside from, like, personally, I really rate Aleister Black, and if you paint him as like just the black massing badass, like, he could be like, I personally see him as a potential like top guy in WWE, but since his call up, he's not been painted as such, and now he's guy who can put on a good match, but he's beaten up all the time. So maybe this, I think, will give him some time off and a bit of a refresh. Like, I don't even have to hit the heights that I envision. Like, if I was booking the show, I would build him like properly. Brock Lesnar build, because I rate him so highly, as in 2002 type of dominance type of thing. Like, I would really build him, but still, yeah, some time off for a refresh, not the end of the world. Yeah, but loved what this did for the Buddy Murphy Seth Rollins dynamic, and later in the night we got a little bit more of an addition as well. Well, I guess I'll talk about Murphy when I get to his singles match later, just in a little bit more detail. Backstage, R-Truth and Mustafa Ali. The recently returned man is on MVP's VIP lounge before his match tonight, whilst Truth says he wants to win his 24/7 baby back, before calling Mustafa and walking off. Oh, Truth, you scallywag, you. He might come into play in this next segment. MVP's VIP lounge. The VIP lounge is now for the executive board of the Hurt Business. At first I was like, I don't know if I like that name, the Hurt Business, but now they've gone fully in with it, calling themselves executives. Like, it's not a stable with members, it's a business with executives. I like it. After they kind of went in with it, it's like, actually no, I love this. And MVP has been so fantastic. As I've said in previous weeks, it's not just that he's got his heels stable and he's beating people up. It's like, no, the people he's beating up, he tried to recruit and continuously said afterwards that there's a reason he did so, that they are talented athletes, and he would still want them in his stable, but they went the wrong route, so now they have to face the consequences of that. It's like, yeah, he's putting them over as he's beating them up. I like that. MVP says he wants to help Mustafa Ali, hyping him as another prospect for hire. But despite MVP's subtle warnings of Ali making the right decisions, Ali's just happy to be back, happy to be able to climb the ladder again, happy to become a real champion, taking a dig at MVP. MVP makes sure we're aware Ali's facing Bobby Lashley tonight, before reminding him of what happened to Apollo Crews. saying, you can be champion or you can be chum in the water for the Predators. Ali just continues to say no, which is when R-Truth tackled Shelton Benjamin out of the ring and attempted a quick fall, who then escapes back through the ring and up the ramp, and there's our sudden end, cutting to break smooth like an SNL skit. That reaction of, oh, that's the end. Oh, okay. I watch quite a bit of SNL. I'm used to that feeling. But that was, I thought, oh, that's a silly little moment for R-Truth. Turns out it was a setup for what happens during the match. When we return, we are straight into Bobby Lashley, who's got MVP and Shelton Benjamin at ringside, versus Mustafa Ali. And as we get there, Ali is struggling to fight against the power of Big Bobby, who was on top for a strong portion of the match, with a pretty random feeling distraction happening during this bit when Tozawa ran in mid-match to try and cheekily snatch the 24/7 title. Cue Lashley, MVP, and Benjamin fighting the man and his ninjas off, which is where Ali sees opportunity after getting just beaten and just not able to power through Lashley. The distraction happens, Ali seizes that opportunity and dives on his distracted opponent. But when we return from the next ad break, the big man's right on top again. That dive did nothing. It was a damn dominant display from Bobby Lashley. Like another damn dominant display from Bobby Lashley. Ali taking all the offense, surviving, maybe hitting a move, but for the majority of the match, he was getting the hell beaten out of him. Eventually, the smaller man countered his way back in, spinning onto his feet after Lashley attempted the Dominator, then nailed a beautiful spinning DDT, but the match flowed back the same way it had for the rest of it. Lashley catching him in the full Nelson, and the lad who only just returned last week has very quickly tapped out. Like, oh well, he had momentum for 1 week, I guess. The Hurt Business is running strong. Like, I make a critique it of, I would have quite liked Mustafa Ali to maybe get something surprising here. But to set him up for maybe a match with MVP. But no, they're getting over the Hurt Business. That's more me thinking, is the story, because they did a VTR for Mustafa Ali as well. So I was just thinking, are they properly putting Ali over now? They generally see what they have in him. That's great, that's amazing, fantastic. But no, the segment was more about getting the Hurt Business over. Or the continued story of when they're by themselves and the numbers are too much. But that wasn't really what happened here. Like, Ali took advantage, and then he got countered by Lashley. It was nothing to do with interference. That Lashley was just better in this match. That's why I kind of took it as, that's a shame. I like Ali. I really rate him, but he just got beaten up a lot, and I thought he was going to survive and maybe get back in and shock everybody, but no, turns out it wasn't him who was getting built here. As I said, could be a story about something else, but as I said, building up the team, but it kind of came across as, Bobby Lashley just beat him. What now then, I guess? Because, again, the match I might go to is MVP versus Apollo Crews, but I'm playing off the assumption that Apollo Crews will be able to wrestle by SummerSlam. Because it's been quite a while now. Don't know if it feels longer because of how they're taping it, but it feels like Apollo Crews has not been there for quite a while. So I wonder when he'll be back. Anyway, we're already onto the Raw Women's Championship match. So I remember I was looking at my notes going, good God, I've written 5 pages of notes for this show where the first half was pretty nothing, then the second half was awesome. It's in the first half built, and I really enjoyed the Seth Rollins kind of building, but it fits in that bracket of building, whilst we've got 2 championship matches in the second half that I really, really enjoyed. But anyway, we're already here. The Raw Women's Championship was on the line as Sasha Banks defended, I guess. It's more Asuka defending against Sasha Banks. Controversy, apparently. No surprise, this was great. Their match at Extreme Rules was truly heading for something incredible for the screwy ending. Same here. But this kind of felt like it got closer to a potential end when the screwy finish happened. And it's on television, so I'm not as mad about it. And I've also been somewhat kind of eased down. Like, the wind's been let out of me a bit. I'm sagging a bit in terms of my air enjoyment. I don't know. The metaphor's got away from me. Before the match itself, Sasha came out with Bayley. They gloated about how they hold all the gold. And it's time to end this silly charade of them saying, oh, it's controversial, Sasha's champion. No, it's not. No, it's not. Everyone else is just jealous of their success, how they run the damn company. Then out come Asuka and Kairi. Before the break, Kairi Sane chases off Bayley to the back. So when we return for the title match introductions, we're properly into our 1v1, no interference affair. And man, these two are so quick, so fluid, so smooth, like really great stuff to watch. Yeah, Sasha realises she's in trouble, so attempts the cheeky Eddie tricks with the ref, which the ref totally doesn't buy. And her attempts end with Asuka kicking her stiff in the head. After that, Banks focused heavily on Asuka's ankle, her kicking ankle, as the Empress tried to counter her way back into the match, even eventually returning the favour and, returning the ankle lock favour with knee bars and toe holds and whatnot. Samoa Joe stating that both these ladies will be limping out of here tonight. But the lead, I've realised, double entendre by accident, that led us back into this awesome back and forth for the final run, just like at Extreme Rules, where that kind of final segment before we got to the end, it was just so fantastic to watch. The submission counters between these two are so damn quick. Sasha again trying other methods, attempting to leave a beaten up Asuka ringside to get countered out. Failed. Another awesome counter reverse as Asuka rolled up Banks, but after the kick out, Sasha went straight into the Banks statement, of which Asuka rolled through into a toe hold, Banks rolled forward, Asuka up onto the second rope, and bam, back with a kick. Such an awesome sequence. My words did it no justice, just because of how quick and smooth it was. It's just, as I said, these two are so smooth, and the pace that they wrestle at, it's just great to watch. Especially as wrestling nerd. I find it truly just fantastic to watch. But it was a sequence that then led into another WWE finish to continue the feud. Video plays on the Titantron of Bayley winning a brawl backstage with Kairi Sane and bashing the poor lass's head again and again against a garage door. Asuka ums and ahs about what to do, but eventually decides to help her friend over winning the match. Asuka had her opponent down. She'd kicked Sasha Banks in the head. She'd countered successfully. She'd not just made sure she was definitely down. But she then just gets countered out as Banks is lying down on the mat, again, having been kicked in the head. Banks is now officially Raw Women's Champion. And it's a screw finish again. Asuka, angry at the actions of Bayley, angry at losing the title to Sasha Banks, and this is assumably going to build to SummerSlam and another encounter between the two. So Banks versus Asuka 3. It's the WWE way of why try and make a match feel uniquely special in terms of a mass encounter between two dream opponents when you can run that same one match 3 times in 1 month. We've got AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura. How many times did that happen? I swear it was 5 times in 2 months. Something ridiculous. We're getting there with this one. A dream encounter. You just run it and run it and run it, and each match has a screwy finish to keep it on going. And yeah. Not as many complaints though. Given this was a TV match, so I'm not expecting them to definitely give me a clean finish on a TV match that isn't the main event. But it's now the second screwy finish in a row for this feud. Third time will hopefully be the charm for them at SummerSlam. I just hope they don't bad will me too much till then. I love these guys. I love all the wrestlers in the feud. But it's the same WWE story with the writing making it really hard to get into things. 2 singles matches, 2 endings with me going, come on, mate. And that's also it for Kairi Sane too. Beaten so badly by Bayley that off she pops back to Japan. And she's now no longer on WWE television. Again, there was the story that Asuka might face Kairi Sane, or Kairi Sane might be in a career-threatening match or something. Instead here they've gone with Bayley beating her up so bad, that's it, we don't see her. And they had Asuka walk out of the doctor's room looking really, really angry. So instead of flat out just informing us Kairi Sane has suffered this made-up injury, they played off the pure emotion of the consequences of an injury rather than going into detail. And I'd stick with that, really. I'm not a massive fan of when they give a fake injury update. And obviously, the Rey Mysterio eye thing is currently the fantastic example of that. Just speaking utter jargony bollocks. just to try and... It's non-medical people trying to speak pure medical talk, and it sounds like nonsense, and it's quite funny to listen to. Anyway, I guess the final match I'm talking about tonight, which when I was writing, I wasn't expecting it to go this way, Murphy versus Humberto Cavillo. Buddy's finally got a theme that isn't garbage. Still generic guitar riffings, but miles better than whatever that jobble waka waka thing was. I'm trying to think, what words describe Buddy Murphy's previous theme? And it's like, dude, waka waka. That's it. There's nothing more to it. Just generic. This match being between the two championship matches made it really hard to not see this as anything but time filler. Like, I definitely watched the match, but I remember pretty much nothing about it. I do remember the finish. The finish came when Murphy caught Cavillo with a knee after the luchador launched from the top rope and straight into Murphy's Law for the win. But the match was like 5 minutes, over 5 minutes. I don't remember anything else. Just where it was in the card, where it was in the point of the show, where I'm mentally at in terms of the kind of stuff I'm expecting. Like, this screamed filler to me. However, it at least added to the Murphy Rollins story. Even, again, just not screaming it in your face either, which I love. They've gave me that kind of style of writing earlier, and they've continued it here. Like, something tells me Murphy internally debating Rollins' orders, then picking up a solo win here. Like, it might only be a matter of time till the Monday Night Messiah faces his own disciple. Like, maybe there's a chance for that to go that way, and I'm seeing WWE actually attempt something slightly more subtle rather than screaming the story into your face. Or maybe there's a chance I'm trying to justify the existence of this match, of which I watched. Great. Yeah, I definitely watched it. But yeah, that's the end of that. So the Monday Night Raw rating, it's an interesting one. First half of build, some but forgettable fun for the most part, aside from the Seth Rollins stuff that I really enjoyed, but it was building in a very similar vein. Then the second half, you got your big two matches, and there was one with a screwy finish. I really enjoyed the main event, and Randy Orton at the end capping off the show. Just like, and now this is where we're going for SummerSlam. I thought that was really good. I guess it builds the Banks versus Asuka match. I'm not a fan of the WWE idea of constantly running the same match, but with screwy finishes to keep getting you invested. Like, I'm not a fan of that. Just don't run the match. But you do get that TV kind of jump to it. Like, when I've praised New Japan in the past for the kind of slowly, you hold off that big match until the show. They don't have the weekly television. They don't have that thing of, we need to do something to try and draw people in. We need that big match. There's like, no, you can run a fine tag team match because it's like a house showy type thing. But still, I'm trying to think of I've not written down the rating for this show. Normally I do, so I don't have to make one up on the spot. But I guess I'd go with... the rating that I gave the tag team match. The best kind of fun. Forgettable fun. Yeah, the best kind of enjoyment. Enjoyment where I'm not going to be able to reiterate to you what happened at all by this time tomorrow. Hopefully, because I'll be asleep. These late shows knacker me. Anyway, that's the end of the show. Thank you for listening to this. What did you make of Monday Night Raw this week? Are you perfectly fine with Randy Orton taking on Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam? Are you more like me, where you would have liked to have held it off? Or are you totally down with it? No issue at all. Hit me up on Twitter at the damn Implicat. If you've been watching on YouTube, that has been right underneath my image on the screen the entire time. That's damn as in damn. And this was the NXT Raw review. On Thursday, I'll be back for the NXT review. Hit me up if you do want a SmackDown one. I don't know if I'm currently able to do it myself, but if there's enough, I'll try and get someone in to do it. I'm just not able to do it myself. It's Saturday. I'd have to do it during the day, and daytime on a Saturday currently doesn't work. If you listen to past podcasts, you'll know there's currently an extension being built on the house I'm in, and during the day to about 4 o'clock, like 6 days a week, it is like the whole house is vibrating and it's really loud. So, like, recording anything or doing a live show or anything, it's just not going to happen. So, SmackDown for the moment, it's not possible. It will be in the future, just like not currently. Anyway, that's the end of that ramble. I just realised I'd not addressed SmackDown. I thought, might as well. Also, you've heard the creative adage of if you really want to create something, you will find a way to do it. Which is so me being like, oh, it's just not possible, just can't do it. Also, kind of lets me know I don't really want to do it. Like I will do it if there's enough, but enough requests. But I'm not a massive follower of SmackDown nowadays. It's in terms of Imp, you watch so much wrestling, yes, but I don't watch SmackDown, and that kind of enables me to have the stamina. But I will watch it if people want me to. Anyway. I'll be back on Thursday for the NXT review, but please do check out the other shows here on LOP Radio. Live after Dynamite, we have our post-AEW show, Dynamite After Dark, with Jamman and Jeff. Fridays, we have Mizfan and Mystic with the WWF The Legacy Series, an unabridged look over the history of the now WWE with the journey of the WWF in its entirety. Cannot recommend that show enough. Also, there's the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast, which has just uploaded an interview with Ring of Honor's person. I told people on a different show I suck with names. Who bloody was it? It was Amy Rose, that was it. Ring of Honor's Amy Rose. So that interview is currently up both on the channel and on the Lots of Pain website or whatever. Also, we have got Quick and Painless came back last week as well for their show. And we've got a new show coming to you about the history of Canadian wrestling in a very similar vein to how, if I can believe my words, similar vein to WWF Legacy Series. Like, if you like those shows with hell of a lot of research, with jokes thrown in as well to make sure you're bloody paying attention. So that'll be coming maybe Monday. If everything's sorted by Monday, that might be uploaded by next Monday. So keep an eye out for that as well. And with that, I say thank you. Oh, Kingdom of Honor. Let's not forget to plug Kingdom of Honor. Also, I'll be live after every pay-per-view, be it AEW, New Japan, or WWE. With New Japan, it has to be a big show, because, again, during the daytime, I need to see if I can get a decent thing, a decent time slot to not be, make sure it's all fine. Anyway, I'm rambling on, because I need to just end the show. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Thank you to everybody who's listened to this or continues to listen to us or just supports us or just interact with us. All of it greatly appreciated. I'll be back on Tuesday for the NXT review, and this is Monday Night Raw. It's a slightly more fancy outro, and with that to say thank you for watching, and I bid you adieu. Adios.